A very good morning to Madam Sharifa and everyone. We are Group 2 of EBA 4073 Internal Audit. And we are going to present about our group assignment. And we have 6 members in the group. So today we are going to discuss and also to talk about a few questions that are related to internal audit. So let's move on to our first question.
So basically what we have learned internal audit in the previous auditing class is the International Professional Practice Framework. Basically, internal auditors are governed by the International Professional Practice Framework. It is the conceptual framework that organizes authoritative guidance promulgated by the IIA. So this International Professional Practice Framework is divided into 3 main components, which are the mission, mandatory guidance, and the recommend guidance. Code of ethics is to promote the ethical culture in the professions of internal auditing. So here are the 4 principles of the Code of ethics, which is the integrity, is to perform the work with honesty, the objectivity is avoid the acts or relationship that impact unbiased assessment. So and for confidentiality, be prudent in the use information. And lastly is the competency, is a service with knowledge, skill, and experience to provide the quality of the service. We also had learned the insurance engagement process and also the difference between the insurance engagement and the consulting service. It different from the aspect of definition, is involved, scope of activity, deliverables, and also its example. Besides this, we also had to know about the eras of evolution in internal auditing, which from the pre-1990 to the years of 1990s until 2004 and beyond.
Next, I will talk about Institute of Internal Auditors Malaysia, which is IIAM. IIM is a non-profit professional organizations which are dedicated to the advancement and also development of the internal audit profession in Malaysia. And basically, there are 5 principal objectives of IIM. The first principal objective of IIM is to build and maintain relationship with all critical stakeholders in internal audit, risk management, and also corporate governance issues. The second principal objective of IIM is to develop appropriate and sufficient staff resources to fully support the achievements of its mission and objectives. The third one is to build and market the professions of internal audit in Malaysia. The fourth principal objective of IIM is to develop consulting and supporting services for the internal audit professionals in Malaysia. And last but not least, the final principal objective of Institute of Internal Auditors Malaysia is to have all internal auditors in Malaysia to become qualified members of IIM and also to expand membership base to audit committee members. That's why IIM is highly encouraged its members to become a certified internal auditors, which in short is CIA. Next, I will talk about roles and responsibilities of internal auditors. The first one is to assess the risk of management. The profession of internal audit is fundamentally concerned with the evaluating and organization's management of risk, and all the organizations may face their risks, such as the risk to the organization reputations if it treats customer incorrectly, health and safety risk, the risk of supplier failures, the risk associated with the market failures, IT risk, and also financial risk. The key to an organization's success is to manage those risks effectively. And if they manage the risk effectively, they might be more effectively than the competitors and as effectively as the stakeholder demand. To evaluate how well the risks are being managed, the internal auditor will assess the quality of the risk management processes, system of internal control, and also the corporate governance processes. And across all parts of an organization, report this directly and independently to the most senior level of management. The second role and responsibility of the internal auditors is to assess the management in corporate governance. The profession of the internal audit in corporate governance has highlighted the critical roles of the directors in promoting the good corporate governance. So in particular, the board of directors are charged with the ultimate responsibility for the effectiveness of their organization's internal control system. So the internal audit they may play a very critical role in this to supporting the board of directors in ensuring the enough oversight of the internal control and the effectiveness of the corporate governance by delivering an objective evaluations of the existing risk and internal control framework, systematic analysis of business processes and associated controls. They will also review of the existence and value of the asset. So they will also given a source of the information on major frauds and also the irregularities. They will ad hoc the review of other areas of concerns, including the unacceptable levels of risk, review of the compliance framework, and also specific compliance issues. They will also review of the operational financial performance. They will give some recommendations for more effective and efficient use of the resources. They will also give some assessment of the accomplishment of the corporate goals and also objectives. So the last one, they will also deliver the board of directors regarding the feedback on the adherence to the organization's values and also the code of ethics. So the third role and responsibility of the internal auditors is to assess the management in improving the internal control. So basically, the internal auditor, they might concern about a few elements, including the review of the reliability and integrity of the financial and operating information as a means used to identify, measure, classify, and report such information. So the second one, they will also review the system established to ensure the compliance with those policies, plans, procedures, law, regulations, and also the contract, which could have a significant impact on the operations and also report. And finally, they will also determine whether the organization is in compliance with those code of ethics and also the other law or regulations. They will also review the means of the safeguarding assets and, as appropriately, verify the existence of such assets. The last one, they will also appraise the economy and efficiency with which resources are employed. They will also review the operation or program to ascertain whether the results are consistent with the established objectivity or whether the results are consistent with the established standards and goals and whether the operations or programs are being carried out as planned. So the last roles and responsibility of the internal auditor that we have learned during our last semester, which is during our advanced auditing and also our principal auditing. So this is regarding to the internal auditor that might also will working with other assurance providers such as the executive management and also the board of audit committee. So there are slide of the differences between the internal and external audit. The first one is the external audit, they are focusing their reporting to the shareholder or member who are outside the organization. Whereas the internal audit, they are focusing on the reporting to the board and senior management who are within the organizations. So for the objective, the external audit, they are frequently they are given the opinion and also assurance on the financial reporting, whereas the internal audit, they are focused on the evaluations and the increasing of the effectiveness of the governance. So the external audit does mostly cover the financial reporting risk, whereas the internal audit, they are cover most of the categories of the risk. So for the responsibility for the improvement of external audit, for external audit, there actually is none. However, there is a duty to report problems. So for the internal audit, the improvement is actually fundamental to the purpose of the internal auditing, but it is done by the advising, coaching, and facilitating purpose. So there is a close relationship between the internal audit function and the external auditor. The external auditor should relate their work to the function of the internal auditors by determining whether the work of the internal auditors is actually enough for them, and this might include the following elements, which are objectivity, technical competence, field professional care, and also communications. And there are two types of the internal audit activities. The first one is operational audit. Operational audit is also known as a performance audit and also management audit, and used to assess the operation quality and to evaluate the effectiveness and also the efficiency of the operating procedures. So the second one is compliance audit. It refers to a contract in which the party concerned must comply with all terms of agreement. It helps to compare the fairness between the information and given standards. So during the compliance audit, the auditors they must identify the elements of the audit, and then they should assess whether a subject matter is compliant with the established criteria or not. And then the lastly one, they will issue a compliance audit report.
Okay, I will explain on the general tasks of internal auditors. As we all know, internal auditors will perform work in any area, either in financial or operationals. They will test the accuracy of account balances. Also, they will review the accounting and control system of a company. They will review the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness of operations of a company. Furthermore, internal auditors will review whether the company comply with external laws and regulations and the internal policies and procedures. Apart from that, they will involve in special investigation, especially in the case of fraud within the company, and they will evaluate the risk management procedures of that company, as well as to make recommendations on how to improve the internal controls and governance process of that company.
So in 2007, the Malaysian Code on Corporate Governance, or the MCCG, has emphasized and highlighted the importance of internal audit, and Bursa Malaysia listing has already made it compulsory for listed firms to have an internal audit. So why is it necessary for an internal audit to exist in a firm, in a listed firm? Because internal audit has specific roles in improving the quality of corporate governance. The internal audit provides an independent and objective assurance service to the board of directors, audit committee, and management, and bringing a systematic and disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, governance processes to accomplish the objectives of the firms. So ultimately, the internal audit would increase the effectiveness and efficiency of the company's governance through improving the credibility of the companies.
Next, I will continue to present a question for what if there is not internal audit in B organization. Firstly, if there is not internal audit, the long-term development of B organization will be plowed by risks such as fraud, wasted of resources, illegal operations, and regulatory penalties. Second, if the B organization have more subsidiaries and branches, there will be more risk if has left the internal audit, which will lead to the risk explosion. Third, a thorough outsourcing of our auditing can reduce the organization investment in the internal audit resources, and it is also does not affect the organization temporary operation, but it will have the negative impact on the organization immune system. The outsourcing of internal audit also not has a deep understanding of the actual operation of the organization. Third, a thorough outsourcing of auditing. Next, internal audit can play a harsh role in a risk management and internal control system. So without the inspection of internal audit, the risk control system will be not reliable. Besides, without the internal audit, the organization internal control cannot be evaluated, including the corporate governance and the accounting process. Last but not least, if there is no internal audit, will reduce the organization productivity. This is because the internal audit is an objective assurances and consulting activity designed to add value and improve the organization operation. Without internal audit, it is impossible to introduce systematic and standardized methods to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance process to help the organization achieve its strategic goal. That's all.
Can internal audit fails, and what the organizations need to take actions for failure internal audit? So the first one is the organizations need to involve in the high risk area. Some internal auditor does not advertise in the high risk area. For example, for the high risk area is the organization's technology, cyber security, the non-generally accepted accounting principle, financial measures, and trade environment. The management also tells them not to look at this area as there is a problem and they did not have the effort to solve it. The organizations need to hire or outsource the more experienced expertise on the issues to solve the problem. Other than that, the organization should having budget on this problem and not just finding reasons for not detecting it. Next slide. For the second point is that the organizations need to maintain the good culture. Some internal audit are preferring that they stick with audit issues are more easily quantifiable, but the risks related to the culture in the organizations will be ignored. Unhealthy culture in the organizations will let minor issues grow to major problems. So the organizations need to careful of the culture if the internal audit stick only with the audit issues. To maintain the culture, the organizations can have rules, leadership, communicate with others friendly, and team building events. Next slide. For third point is the organizations need to be careful when the information provided by internal auditor is not comprehensive. Some internal audit might think that their task is only report the issues to the management and the board. Actually, the internal auditor needs to report the issues in more details to them to let them make the decision. It is worse when the management and the board know the problem but they did not do anything about it. So the organizations need to remind the internal auditors to address the full information of the issues, include the effects, the causes, and the risks of the issues, and not only inform about the issues, and to let the top management to make decisions. So when the internal audit did not fail, the organization should have to maintain it as it will still affect the decision making of the top management.